Mark, if we've understood that correctly, it looks like it is this process of refoulement, which is a word that we're all learning, which is basically saying that if an asylum seeker will be prosecuted in their own home country, then they cannot be sent back. And there is not faith that the Rwandan services, the judiciary in Rwanda, would be able to make that judgment correctly, and therefore we are not going to be sending anybody there. Is that a fairly basic summation of what just happened, Mark?
Yeah, I mean, this is disastrous for the government because, as the former Home Secretary, Suella Braverman, has said herself, there is no plan B. The government bet the house on Rwanda as being the one policy that they believed would act as a deterrent to those people smugglers across the Channel. And the Court of Appeal, and now, of course, the Supreme Court, relied a good part on the evidence from the UNHCR, the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, who gave evidence that Rwanda had in the past, as far as a similar deal with Israel is concerned, failed to live up to its obligations to properly process those asylum seekers in those instances, and they were at risk of fulfilment. Yes, as you say, of these people being returned to their home countries where they could be at risk in those nations they were returned to. The Supreme Court said that they have no doubt that Rwanda did enter into this agreement with, all of the proper intention to carry out their function to process these sorry about this, to process the applications, the asylum applications properly, but at this stage the Supreme Court does not believe that Rwanda is capable of fully meeting all of its obligations here in processing these asylum applications properly, and that there is a risk that people could be returned to their home countries, and as such they could be at risk in those home countries. So now it, of course, is for the new Home Secretary James Cleverly and the Prime Minister Rishi Sunak to digest what has been handed down here, but it is a bitter blow without a doubt to the government, who really has been fighting the courts all the way through since this was first announced as a policy by the then Prime Minister Boris Johnson in April of last year. It's been through various court battles. The final one here at the Supreme Court has gone against the government. So it will be interesting, of course, to see what the government comes up with now in terms of a solution going forward. But as Suella Braverman said, she doesn't believe there is any plan B that the government has to hand that could actually deal in a robust way with the numbers coming across the Channel. And just this Sunday, another 615 people crossed the English Channel when the weather conditions improved, showing that it is still a significant problem, even though overall numbers might be down on last year. More than 27,000 have crossed the English Channel so far this year.
Smart White outside the Supreme Court. We're going to go live to Downing Street, where Chris Hope, our political editor, is. Chris Hope, this is a major crisis now for Rishi Sunak's government because, as Suella Braverman has said in her explosive resignation letter, no plan B.
A complete disaster here. Now calls will mount on the backbenches from Tory MPs to pull out of the European Convention on Human Rights. That's the next step, because unless the government here can appeal to the European Court, which I doubt it wants to, what is the next step? What the only issue, I think, maybe the olive branch, maybe that Labour have not got a better idea than the Tory party on this. They simply want to work closer, I think, with enforcement groups on the continent. But this is a major blow. Stop the Boats was one of the the central planks of Mr Sunak's time in office. It hasn't happened. It now can't go ahead unless there's some serious action from the government. But what will happen next, we do know that James Cleverly, who of course is the new Home Secretary, is against pulling out of the ECHR. So what will Mr Sunak do? We'll wait and see at Prime Minister's questions, but this is a real setback for Mr Sunak on a day when he has seen inflation halve. He's hit his target on inflation. It's one step forward, one step back.
Because it reminds me of David Cameron's government, which made absolutely no contingency planning whatsoever for Britain leaving the European Union, because it never occurred to them in their arrogant ways that the British people could possibly go against what they wanted. Here we've had setback after setback in the court. 90 months this plan's been in the making and no alternative, nothing waiting in the wings so we can say, actually, we can do this instead. Nothing. That's a failure of leadership and government, isn't it?
It does seem a failure. I mean, they've had one year of waiting around, no attempt to bring forward any legislation in case this happened. But look at other countries, though. Germany is looking at processing migrants in a third country. Other countries are looking at the British model. So there may be some comfort there, or maybe some support from international partners that Mr Sunak needs right now. But this is a real crisis for him, because the right will be really, really worried about this. And of course, we had Suella Braverman resign yesterday. We're waiting to hear her first big interview, whether that's a statement to MPs maybe next week, or whether it's going to be an interview with any channel. What she'll say next is so important, I think, because it looks right now that Mr Sunak has lost a central plank of his time as Prime Minister.
OK, thank you very much, Chris. Christopher Hope there at 10 Downing Street. Richard Tice is still with us in the studio. Richard, how much money do you think we've already given to Rwanda before we've even sent one asylum seeker over there? How much have we given to build hotels, to get it all ready? How much?
I don't know.
I'll tell you.
May come out. You've obviously got the information.
£140 million we've given to Rwanda.
I mean, frankly...
Hang on, I'm not finished yet. And that's before we talk about what we've spent on the lawyers to get us to this place. It is an absolute shambles. And Suella Braverman is right. He doesn't care. He hasn't got a plan B. He needs to resign. Never mind her.
That is the reality. I mean, this is gross negligence on every level. To have handed that money over in the fear that you could lose this case, to have handed that money over with no plan B, no alternative, deliberately. The Prime Minister has deliberately rejected the advice of his own Home Secretary to have a plan B. She wrote to him, she told him how to do it.
He didn't answer a reply to her letters.
He didn't even reply to a letter. Frankly, he's humiliated, he's exposed, he should resign, he should call an election, and those of us who believe that we should leave the European Court of Human Rights, we will fight the next election on leaving the ECHR, stopping the boats. This will become the slogan of the next general election, I have no doubt whatsoever.
What, leaving the ECHR?
I think stopping the boats by leaving the ECHR.
But you see, what we've just heard then from Judge Reid, Lord Reid, is that it isn't just about the ECHR, it's about the UNHCR, the UN Refugee Agency. Those are the ones, that's what's done for us.
Who have sent refugees to Rwanda.
I've just been looking, whilst he was speaking, at a 29-page report by the UNHCR, dated April 2023, that actually congratulates Rwanda on how well it's done in so many areas to do with asylum. It only refers to 3 refoulement cases in the whole of 2022. And so there is a serious conflict there. But frankly, who runs this country? Is it the UNHCR? Is it the ECHR? Or is it the Prime Minister, the Cabinet and the government that's elected by the people?
And the unelected judges, by the way, Richard. The unelected judges.
Yes, but the judges interpret the law. The Prime Minister and the government, they can create law. The former Home Secretary said you need to change the law, you need to have an alternative. He rejected that. He's humiliated. He is absolutely on the back foot.
So people watching this programme and listening on the radio are going to be shouting and screaming at the TV and the radio. They're going to be shouting and screaming. They are so frustrated. We all know how deeply concerned people are. There's scores, hundreds of people, 650 odd on Sunday alone, Richard. What is the quick solution, Richard? Because leaving the European Court will take forever. What if you were Home Secretary and Prime Minister? What would you do differently?
Very simple. I've said it time and time again, using existing treaties, I would pick up and safely take back to France. Every single one. Just this weekend, The French authorities, they rescued 7 boats with 200 people. They took them back to France. The Belgian authorities are picking them up, taking them back to France. So, we could do that. It requires courage, it requires leadership. There's none of that within this government, within Number 10 and the Prime Minister. And until there is, nothing will change. That's the key point.
Richard, don't we also need to have some safe and legal routes for people who want to seek asylum, where they apply, but they apply online? I mean, far be it from me to normally promote technology. They apply online. We can look at it. We can decide how many people we want. We can give the green light to some and say, no, I'm sorry to others. We don't have that system.
I'm sorry, that's absolute nonsense. We have got safe and legal routes. Look at what we've done for Afghanistan. Look at what we've done for Ukrainians. Look at what we've done for Syrians. We've had plenty of safe and legal routes. We have a visa system which is safe and legal routes for those who want to come to this country. 1.2 million people. We're one of the most generous, welcoming nations in terms of immigration in the world.